All right, welcome. Happy Monday. This is the 100th episode of the Think on These Things podcast. Get in here, get in here, get in here. If you have not watched this show before, get excited because this is such a fantastic time that we get to spend together every weekday, historically speaking, of course. We are getting back into the groove of things. It has been, how many years has it been? Oh my goodness. It took us since September 23, 24, 25, September 26 almost. It's August 24th, I want to say. And we are just now hitting our 100th episode milestone, and I could not be more proud. I mean, maybe I could. Honestly, there are so many things that I sort of envisioned that would have gone differently. However, I am really grateful that I'm still here, I'm present, and I have my wits about me in a way that, honestly, as we get into this episode, you'll understand I really haven't for a very long time. And there's a lot to unpack there. We won't have time to do it all today. So that's why we'll be able to come back day in and day out, because consistency begets momentum. Now, a couple things I want to share with you. First and foremost, you will notice that we are not in a studio setting. We are in literally my car. And that is because the show is now on the road, because much of my life is now on the road. Another story that we will be unpacking, not all in today's episode, but we will unpack it as each new episode comes and each new day unfolds. Another thing that I wanted to share before we get into today's episode is that the format is changing. It is ever so slightly updating. There are modifications that I've introduced in different shows, or different episodes, I should say, over the last year, probably year and a half. If you ask anyone who's like been on the management team at Kyra Universe in that time span, probably actually since 2023, they have a ton of messages and voice messages, text messages, notes from meetings about how the show needs to be updated and we need to add this, subtract this, expand this, shrink that, whatever the case may be. All those edits that I wanted to bring to the show and that I continually sort of ponder on are all in the interest of just making the show the best that it can possibly be. And now, yes, we're on the road. You can actually see that I'm not lying. There are people who are going to pass by on either side, I think, as the show goes on. Hopefully nobody stops and stares, because that's just weird. Anyway, I don't even know what to say. If it isn't clear, I am so beyond excited. I'm so beyond grateful. I'm so beyond ecstatic. And there's a lot that had to happen to bring me to this place. There's a lot that had to happen in order for me to choose to arrive at this place. And if I could tell you all in one sitting, I probably would. But then you wouldn't be able to go to work or school or church or home to your family. So we're going to take this in bite-sized chunks and just share, of course, what's appropriate. Without further ado, you know what? Let's go ahead and get into today's episode. Since I've got you, I'm so happy I could live. All right. If you have the Book of Positive Affirmations, you don't have to have a Q-tip like me. Actually, don't mind my Q-tip. I say don't mind it as I get ready to show you in 4K. It fell before this episode began, so I'm gonna go get a new one because this is kind of dusty. I don't like that. I'm taking better care of this book than I did the previous one. If you go back to previous video episodes, you will see, or even audio episodes, you will hear I describe it. That book is torn and tattered. I don't even know where it is right now. It's packed away somewhere. Today's episode is going to center on chapter 3, day 16. So it is Book of Positive Affirmations 316, if you want to make that simpler and easier to sort of say. If you have the Book of Positive Affirmations, go ahead and get that ready. If you do not have the Book of Positive Affirmations, I'm going to include a link where you can purchase your copy for either yourself or for someone in your life. because we don't have the Made Up Mind website up anymore. If you've been someone who frequents Made Up Mind or Self Exploration Academy, the industry leader, RFO Collective, yada, 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 all the different websites that we've had in our orbit, you'll notice one thing in common, that none of those websites are up right now. We are feverishly working to, and I race talk, by the way. So I think it's so funny how people usually they have like YouTube on like 1.5 and 2x and sometimes even 3x speed. You might need to just leave mine on normal. Or like sometimes, to be completely fair, you might want to put it on like 0.5. I think it actually all sort of evens out in the end, though. There are some moments where it's like, okay, like this could be faster. And there are a lot of moments where it's like sprint mouth. Anyway, I was just saying that we are working on creating something that is a little more sustainable, that is a little more central, universal, that feels more accessible to all of our users. And that's going to take some time. So there's no need, honestly, for us to leave all those things up right now. There's a lot of content that was up on, let's say, for example, Made Up Mind, that we're going to go over on this show anyway. There's a lot of stuff that was up on the industry leader that will show up in other areas of Chirouniverse that will remain accessible to the users who need it most. And the world is a very full and vast place. So honestly, like, we don't have a monopoly on any of this information. There are so many opportunities to sort of access it elsewhere. I have no qualms in making that super clear, because I'm not interested in monopolizing anything, to be completely honest. I think that's just unnecessary. The best in the end, I think, will win. It'll be the most sought after. It may not be the most owned thing or resource, but it would definitely be the most sought after. Anyway, today's episode, like I said earlier, centers on the affirmation that is found in chapter 3, day 16 of the Book of Positive Affirmations. And the affirmation, which I will read 3 times, goes as follows: because I am grateful, I am unshaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. Because I am grateful, I am unshaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. Because I am grateful, I am unshaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. As I've read this affirmation, or rather, as I read this affirmation now, I realize immediately a couple of things. First, this book was written sort of as a daily affirmation project or process, right? I think even in the beginning, there are instructions that it's like, use these day in, day out, one day at a time, in order, or something like that. Daily life, carefully chosen in order to help you love yourself, know yourself, grow yourself with the power of a positive mindset. Read one affirmation each day aloud, preferably in the morning. Let these words set the tone for your day. Go at your own pace. If you feel you're not quite ready to move on, feel free to linger. Repeat the affirmation until you feel confident it's speaking to your life right now. Revisit entire sections if needed. Growth isn't linear. Sometimes we need to revisit ideas that once resonated to see how they fit our lives now. So yeah, let me stop reading this instructions page right there, because the point that I'm making is, I have always thought of and really looked at this book, even with that instructions page, right? I have personally looked at and thought of this book as a daily affirmation book that you go from day 1 to day 2 to day 3 to day 4, right? And I remember when I first picked up the book to look at this affirmation, probably a few months ago, I thought, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to sit down and talk about this affirmation. Like, how am I going to talk about affirming this? And I know that my reality is just so out of touch, or out of alignment with this affirmation. I hope we can edit those sounds. My God, that's loud. So, I just, this is like part of what has me so excited to be doing this episode, because there is so much that has happened, specifically, I'd say in the last few months, yes, but definitely in the last year and a half. And in the last probably 2 weeks, maybe even just 1 week. Like, there's just so much that's been happening. Life has been so full, vast, and varied lately. And I feel that for the first time in a long time, because I am grateful, I am unshaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. And it's not that I want to be perfect or pristine when I'm doing these episodes. It's not that I want to be like, look at me, I'm the example of greatness and positivity. That's not the point here. The reason I didn't want to get up and do the show 3 months ago, when I first picked up this book and read chapter 3, day 16, was because I was so lost. There was so much that was happening in my life that just didn't add up, and I was shaken. I didn't have a single foot to stand flat on. And I just couldn't understand why it was so hard for me to regain some sort of balance in my life, no matter how hard I tried. And I don't even know if it's true that I couldn't understand it or that I refused to sort of face the facts of the situation. Because I know that lately, since I have decided to face the facts of the situation, to actually face them, not to just talk about them or allude to them or fantasize about them, but actually face the facts of the situation that I was in, or that I am in, rather, I have seen things change drastically. Now, when I look at the last year and a half, I'm going to keep looking at my notes so I don't go too far off course. When I look at the last year and a half of my life, I notice something as it relates to this affirmation, that I have been terribly shaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. I can look back in many similar situations of my life and see where things panned out differently, whether things went really well or things went really left before they went really right. I can see where my head was at, where my heart was at, where my feet were at, and what I was putting my hands to. I'm going to make sense of all this in just a moment, because that obviously is very abstract, right? So in May of 2025, I lost a very good contract. Probably the best that I had had in my career to date, to be completely fair and honest. The circumstances that led to the termination of the contract were very unfortunate and littered with dishonesty and like just made up stories, to be completely honest, which is unfortunate because everyone has actual room for improvement. I am not precluded from that truth where I have faults. Everyone views themselves better than they are, right? To some extent, at least, right? And it's incumbent on us to actually consider the feedback, even if it is riddled with feeling over fact. The feedback you are given is the feedback that you have available to you to work with. And it is incumbent on you to actually consider that feedback and see what value it has to you becoming a better, as you strive to become a better person. When I sat down to discuss all of these allegations, it was 3.5 hours where I was just told lie after lie after lie after lie after lie. And I just couldn't understand why these fabrications were concocted and why they were so forcefully brought against me. There might be more to this, but it doesn't really matter. It doesn't mean that I was completely in the right. It does mean I wasn't completely in the wrong. Like there were a lot of lies that were told. That means none of them were true, right? So there was no truth in the stories that were being told there. So I I don't think that that relationship, that working relationship, should have ended. At least not in the way that it had. And I wonder what will come of the people who decided that it was just okay to lie on someone else. I wouldn't do that to someone. I've never done that to anyone. And I wouldn't do that to someone, even someone I detest, right? I believe in working in truth, working with reality. And I'm not perfect. So I haven't always met that mark. And I'm going to talk about that during this episode because it was a big contributor to me being shaken by the turbulence of the last year and a half of my life. But as I look at years prior, this isn't the first time that I've lost a contract or been fired or let go. Um, and there is a balance to a lot of the stories, if you will. Like, I'm not perfect. People don't like me for one reason or another. I'm pretty consistent, though. I am pretty consistent wherever I go. I thrive on direct communication. I require direct communication. I have to have it. It's not that I demand direct communication from you. It is that I require it. In order to function, I have to have it. I cannot be without it. So this is one of the reasons that I was nearing my end in 2023, leading into 2024, because the job that I had in corporate America, I lost with no forewarning and no reason. I was told explicitly, I literally have this recorded. I went in because I felt there was something off. I was like, are you guys like sure that you like having me here? Are there any areas in which like I can improve? Like, what is the reality of the situation that we're in as it relates to my employment and my fit in the like professional culture of this workplace? At that time, I was told, no, there's nothing wrong. We love you. I was just talking with the head of the department. She loves you. I love you. You're great. Your work ethic is stellar. We are very happy to have you here. You will have this job as long as you want it, Kairu. I said, as long as I want. Okay, interesting. It's not the vibe that I was getting. Literally, like 2 weeks later, no forewarning, just good morning, hand in your key card. Here's a box. Pack your things. This is your last day. We're not telling you why at all. We just decided that it's not going to work out. Bye. Being fired is one thing. I have handled that so many times in my life. I handle rejection. I do struggle sometimes with just like the lack of clarity as to why. And then I just have to remember that that's a part of life, right? And I have to decide what I'm going to do from there. In this particular instance, the job market has been very terrible, no matter what your qualifications are, no matter where you stand in that regard. In New York City, it's been very hard to find good, solid, consistent, long lasting work that helps you make ends meet and live like a reasonable life. To be completely honest, you need to make six figures in order to live a decent life in New York City. And obviously everybody's definition of decent is different. There are people who live on like, I don't know, less than $50,000 a year and they figure out how to make it. That is an option. It is not something that I would recommend. It is not something that I aspire to. It's not something that I'm willing to consider or work with, to be completely fair and honest. Six figures is a minimum guarantee that is necessary in order for you to really live a decent life in New York City. Um, so with that being said, it's very hard to find the right opportunities or to chart your own path unless you have a very clear vision and a very solid, like impenetrable work ethic. When I was nearing my end in 2023, people in my life will tell you I still got up every single morning, no later than 6 a.m. I might have gone to bed at 2 a.m. I was up on time. My calendar was loaded with responsibility that I took over my shoulder and handled like an adult with a plan and a purpose and an expected end. And I got up and I did the work, and it paid off because when I got the opportunity to work with this company whose mission I just felt was so aligned, like our values were just so well aligned, I had to work with this company. And I just started as like an entry level, um, just doing the entry level job. And then there was an opportunity to move into team leadership and to move into management and move into a directorial role. And I became an external partner with this company to my great fortune and pride and joy, I would say. I still look back on that experience as one of the best moments of my career. And maybe in time, we'll talk about more specifics, but obviously I'm going to keep some of the information private because it is a private life experience. I was so ecstatic every morning that I woke up to do this job until maybe toward the end. It was a little cumbersome, to be completely honest. And I'm sure I'll have time to get into what led to that. And I sort of kind of felt the end coming. I just didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. And there's a lot that I should have been doing as a professional outside of this contract that I dropped the ball on, and a lesson that I told my mother I learned out of this. And I told, a handful of people, but most important conversation was with my mother about this is that God told me that I need to stop putting all my eggs in one basket or stop relying so heavily on one basket. He has promised me life and life more abundantly. So why on earth would I settle for one basket when he's got more than I could ever ask, imagine, or think at the ready? All I have to do is step up and step in to the abundance that he has for me. With that being said, I did rely too heavily on this one basket. I was too enamored with this one basket. And to my great misfortune and dissatisfaction, I learned so quickly how dangerous that is. And it's interesting because I already knew how dangerous that is. I already knew how dangerous that was, is, and can be, and will be because of past experiences. Like I said, it's not the first time that I've been let go. It's not the first time I've been let go with cause. When I was let go from I had a sales job in 2022. And I want to remember, I had a grievance because they wanted us to do some illegal work in Times Square. It was a decent gig. I was good at the job and I enjoyed it to an extent. I enjoyed the money, of course. And I also enjoyed the difference that it made in the lives of the families that came in. There were a lot of different individuals who came in, but it was mostly when families came in and they were forever changed in a positive manner that left a really good mark on me. I do remember that it was because I had a grievance with just inconsistency with management and not knowing who to go to when we need them, and then also being expected to go out on the street and do some illegal activity and risk being like arrested or at least accosted by the police. I was just like, what is going on here? I had some questions. And less than like 2 hours later, I was fired. I was let go so quickly. But that wasn't all. I learned that the CEO of the company called a meeting with the rest of the sales staff, allegedly, I'll say, because this was reported to me by the sales staff that remained. And he stated apparently that I was obviously like a bad person. They were barred from communicating with me. They were barred from attending. I was hosting a party, I think later that week. It was literally just a few days after they fired me. And you know what I did? I went and hosted that party. I partied like it was 1999 and I had a blast. And we have video and photo evidence of that party. It was so good. It was so full. It was so rich. It was so joyous. It was wonderful. There is nothing that can stand in the way of joy. If you give joy priority, it will keep you sane. It will keep you strong and it will keep you centered and grounded and you will win. I promise you this. I did not stop winning because I got fired, especially the circumstances under which or upon which I was let go. This man apparently was telling the sales staff that I was trying to lure underage girls into a 21 plus party that I was hosting and that he was going to have security and police posted up at my party. I published this publicly that, hey, if anything goes wrong, you can go ahead and contact this person. Now, I'm not going to bring up his name right now, but I was just so, I guess, tickled by the fact that he thought that he could shake me down. I was unshaken in the turbulence of uncertainty. I had no idea whether or not he was going to send people. I had no idea whether or not he was going to actually pursue some sort of phony legal action and what kind of connections he has to quote unquote protect the underage girls that he had working at his studio that I had never had any sort of inappropriate conversation with at all. First off, I was later told by the sales director, the national sales director, who was still there when I was fired, that he was really upset. First, because I was Black. Second, because he was just like so convinced that I'm like gay, right? So get your story straight. Is it because you think I'm gay, or is it because you think I'm trying to lure underage girls? And, you know, what is the real issue that you have with me? At the end of the day, there is no real issue. There's no real issue because even if I hired someone who I thought was too powerful, right? My modus operandi is to figure out how to leverage the strengths of the people that I brought onto my team. I've never hired someone and thought, I'm afraid they're going to take over my company. They're going to take over my staff and they're getting too big for their britches. If they see something that I don't see, I want to give them even more opportunity to run and thrive and help make me and my company and my team better. I don't have an actual problem with them. If I have a problem, it's with myself, right? So if he has a problem, it's with himself. And he can take that to his grave because I'm sure he won't tell me. We're not in touch, as you can imagine. My point is, I was unshaken in 2022. I was unshaken. I went from there into the corporate America. And then I really was unshaken. I had very, I think, a level headedness about my options when I was nearing my end. I called up a friend. I called up everybody basically and let them know where I was at mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, physically, all those things. And I just wanted to make sure they were aware of what was going on and what my options were and what my plans were. And I don't think I would have done anything differently, to be completely honest. That's number one. Number two, I don't encourage anyone to take the sort of perspective that I had during that period. I also think just who you have surrounding you is just super important. And I won't go any further into that right now. I just want to say that even nearing my end in 2023, I wasn't shaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. I was just level headed and aware of my options and confident in my ability to decide to do one thing or another. And I didn't know what God was up to, what opportunity would avail itself to me. I just had to trust and believe that if it was in his will, he would provide. And I'm so glad. I'm so glad. I'm so glad he did. I'm so glad he did. I would encourage any and everyone, even in your darkest hour, even when this is why you can't lean on to your own understanding. You have to trust that God is working, that things are going to work out in his time, according to his plan and his will for his purpose that he's already predetermined, that has very little to do with what you think, if anything at all, right? Because if it were up to me, things would have gone a lot differently. I would have gotten a different opportunity. I wouldn't have even done the education advocacy. That wouldn't have been on my radar, to be completely honest. I'm passionate about education reform in the United States of America. I think it's abysmal that so many of our students all across the United States, they have not been able to read on grade level since 2016 at the very latest. Forget COVID. COVID obviously was a huge setback. Before that, though, we had very low proficiency in reading and math. Reading and comprehension is at an all time low. Kids do not know almost anything. And it's not a flex to not know anything. It's not a flex to have ChatGPT look it up for you. It's not a flex to have this AI bot and that AI bot. It's not a flex to have a substitution for the actual God given ability that you have to think and to comprehend and to process and to understand and to ideate and to build and to create and to recreate. It is absurd that we are in a place where we're just going to accept the slop that we are living in. That we are going to accept this slop and not ever pursue an understanding of nuance, an understanding of the gray beyond or between the black and the white, to understand that there's so much more to life than what we are told, what we are given, and what we are sold. That's a whole different story. Because the future, of course, of our humanity, especially as we cohabitate with the ever increasing advancement of technology, the future is uncertain. Someone just asked Elon recently if he is, concerned about the threat of AI to humanity. And his response was, well, we should just have some guardrails in place, some safeguards, right? And then the question was, do you think common people will be able to afford protection from these threats? And it was, we should have some oversight, right? The future is uncertain. But you don't have to be shaken. You don't have to be shaken up about that uncertainty. There are a few things that are very certain, and especially as you enter into the arena of politics, and I am watching and reading and learning, and I am definitely adding my 2 cents here and there, especially when it's just principle based. But I myself am not a politician. I'm not a professional political pundit of any sort. I just stand on principle. That when you know something is right, you do what is right. You do the hard right and not the easy wrong. That's what Mother Leonelle Wilson used to tell us, and putting her whole government out there. Rest in peace to her. But I just feel really compelled to share that even, like I said, in 2023, when I was nearing my end, I was unshaken. Okay. I don't know what else to say because at 2024, I had done such a tremendous job in turning things around in my life, financially, musically, romantically, professionally. All these different areas of my life were at like an all-time high in 2024. I put out A Weak Constitution, which is a pretty good album. I'm not going to lie. I'm really proud of that body of work. What I'm most proud of is not even the end product, it is just the decision to do it, to obey God. That's a gift that I was given. That is a resource that I have been required to steward and share with the world. And I think it was like 6 months that I worked on that album from almost from start to finish. Put it out in 2024. Boom, blow, blam. And since then, I haven't put anything out. And I'm going to talk about that very briefly since we are so over on time right now. Um, I wanted to talk about the last year and a half in contrast to all of these other stories that I've shared with you, where I have not been shaken by the turbulence of uncertainty. In the last year and a half, though, I found myself unable to find my footing. And it's not for a lack of opportunity. It's not for a lack of, relationships, and it is for a lack of consistency in relationships. It is for a lack of being present in relationships. It is for a lack of proximity, closeness, intimacy that is required in a lot of my personal and professional relationships that have allowed me to thrive in years past and will allow me to thrive in years future. But during this period, I was siloed. In fact, in the last year and a half, my life has been so locked up and hidden. It's just so uncharacteristically locked up and hidden from the world. No RFO collective, no music, no real definitive forward progress in my career. The biggest, trying to figure out how I can describe this in words that make sense and hold true without being, overly emotional about it. Because the truth is, I was lied to, I was lied on, I was let down, I was led on. I devoted myself to a false hope of love, devotion, commitment, reciprocity. I should probably put the word acceptance in there. I gave and gave and gave everything I had to the detriment of myself, starting with that contract all the way through my last dime. I've talked about this person here and there as I've tried to be present in the world again and, be Kairu, right? And everything has really just fallen flat, to be honest. There is more commentary that I will share. I don't want to be in a place where I am dunking on this person. I do have I feel a sense of duty. I have a responsibility to be honest about what's happening in my life, about where my head is at, about where I've been, where I am, where I'm going. All those things matter. That's what made me so successful in the first place, because that is my authenticity. That's where I reside, in my most authentic self, right? It is not in hiding or obfuscating. The whole point, when I look at the last year and a half, of why I was shaken in the face of uncertainty, is because I could not be, or rather would not be, honest, open, and transparent. And I can reason my way around it. I can give every excuse in the book. My real excuse is like, I was devoted to this person and this idea of a family and a future. And I really feel, not felt, feel that in my heart and my soul. However, when we return to reality, we have to face the fact that my devotion was to a false sense of hope in a person that was never going to choose me, that in a relationship that was designed to kill me. There is no way that I would be here today doing the show, that I would be showing up in the world, if I were bogged down still by what I was in. And again, I have to be careful about how long I dwell on the topic and dwell on the person, because obviously there are still a lot of feelings, and want to be leveled, level headed, honest, open, and transparent, and respectful of this person, because we are all individuals and we are all, I don't want to excuse anything that went wrong and shouldn't have happened. I do want to be fair and honest. My responsibility as it relates to this affirmation is returning to reality, being honest, being open, being transparent, rescinding my devotion to something that's not even real. The other day, I went to Walgreens, and I think it was yesterday. I went to the baby aisle. Uh, this is something that I would call and tell one of my best friends, and I didn't actually call anyone and tell them or text them because I was busy. I went to the baby aisle, and I was actually just passing through the aisle. I saw the diapers and the vitamins and the rubs and all this stuff, and just broke down and cried because I devoted myself to a relationship that I believed was going to be my forever, was going to be my future, was going to be my family, was going to be the bedrock of my faith. And I had to face the fact that it was a falsehood, a false hope. There was no reciprocity ever. It wasn't going to happen ever. There is a consistency to falsehoods. They don't ever stop. And what I mean is, the consistency is like I think about the hate that mutates. They mutate though. These falsehoods, They follow you everywhere. You can never actually live in truth when falsehood is following you around. You have to know yourself enough to know when someone is speaking a lie about you or your character. And right now, obviously, I just gave you the backdrop of how I lost that contract. And there's so many different things that have happened. Like I said, I'm not perfect. I own up to my mistakes. When I make them, when I'm aware of them, when someone makes me aware, I own up to my mistakes. I also advocate for myself in the presence of dishonesty. And it doesn't matter who it is. Could be a friend, could be a foe, it could be a preacher, it could be your best friend, it could be your spouse. If that person is presenting a falsehood about you to you or anyone else, you have the right to advocate for yourself in the interest of truth. But in many cases, you will find it is a losing battle, right? That if a person is committed to lying to or about you, that's what they're going to do. I mean, I even know I have someone who I refer to as Doofus. We'll talk about this person a lot later. But I just found it so strange. We were having a conversation one day and he felt so emboldened to just look me in the eye and lie to me about myself, about who I am, about what I've done, about what I've said. And I had to, there were a few fact checks. We're in a business relationship that involves money. So I was like, you know what? I respect you enough to hold up my end of the bargain. I am going to push back on all of the nonsense that you've just shared with me, right? Because I'm a fierce advocate of self. When I was let go from my last final retail job many years ago, it was illegally done so. They wouldn't admit it. I can't say their name, obviously. There's like a repercussions. I have to look back over the paperwork. I'm not going to get myself into that. My point is, I had a disability, went out of work for an extended period of time. I tried to come back to work. They made it difficult, almost impossible to come back to work. Then they let me go, like I said, illegally. And I had to file charges. I didn't have to file charges. I knew my rights and I chose to file charges because, like I said, in the presence of falsehood or dishonesty, I am a fierce self advocate. And I believe every person should be a fierce self advocate. But in order to advocate for yourself, you have to know the truth. You have to know and you have to understand your rights as well. Because if you don't know the truth, you cannot be certain that you're advocating for yourself. That's number one. If you don't care about the truth, you cannot actually advocate for yourself. You can advocate for what you want in the moment, but that does not equal self advocacy. Another conversation for another day. We are way off my notes. We're also over time. I'm going to wrap this in the next 10 minutes. My best bet is to return to reality. That's my best bet. That's your best bet. It is something that will free you. The truth will set you free, right? First, it'll piss you off. A little pop culture moment there. But I just find it so fascinating that in the span of a week, have been able to turn so much in my life around. There's a lot of work left to be done, and it is a lot. It's a lot of work. But to be sitting here doing the 100th episode of the Think on These Things podcast, to be sitting here knowing that there are some incredible announcements that I have to share about things that are in the works, things that are happening, things that are coming to fruition. Oh my God. So thankful. So thankful. I'm so thankful. So thankful. What I'll say about this life on the road thing, I shared the silver lining of being able to touch grass. I think I did. Maybe it was in my head. I'm really glad that I get to actually like be in nature, even though I am still a Brooklynite. I'm really glad that the silver lining is that I get to be out here in the actual world. I hear Elliot saying as I say this, even, I've had to shift as well. Something like that. I'm trying to remember exactly what he said. I know he's from the South, but he doesn't have a real, like, serious Southern drawl. It's just something about the way that he articulates his thoughts that just lingers in the back of your mind. It's a beautiful thing. As I think about that, though, and I've had to shift as well. I've had to shift as well. It happens to us all. We all have to shift. Hopefully, we all choose to grow. But regardless of what happens in life, the shifts, the turns, the quakes, the ups, the downs, the goods, the bads, the rights, the wrongs, the shorts, the longs, everything happens with purpose. Therefore, everything happens with promise. And as I think on these things, I'm convinced that life is worth living regardless of what happens. Come what may, live. My great grandfather would say, just keep on living. Just keep on. Just keep on. Just keep on. I'm also thinking real recognizes real as I think about all these people who just fixed their minds and their lips to sow disharmony, discord, distrust, dishonesty. I just think it's interesting. I don't want to assign meaning to like, oh, this means that I'm going to be. I mean, I am the head and not the tail. I'm above and not beneath. I am the lender and not the borrower. I will see whatever it is that I speak. I'm not worried about that. I'm not, oh, I got cut off, so now I don't have an opportunity. That's not me speaking. That's fear speaking. God is in control and God is good. And I will lack nothing. I have been promised abundance. I will see abundance. There is no weapon that's been formed against me that has been able to prosper. I mean, look at Melange, for example. I was the co-creative director of the show in 2019. I worked overtime to help write that show, to help liaise with designers and talent and producers and promotions and sponsors and photographers and all sorts of things. And in the end, I was iced out by the CEO because he had Looney Tunes in his ear by way of the man who I assume is his husband today. Just absolute nonsense. And when they went to the press to promote the show, they conveniently erased me from the show. Show wasn't about me, right? But the other co-creative director was presented to the press. I was erased from the story of the show, the backstory of the entire production. But you know something? They will never have an event that's bigger than the one they had that year. They won't. And I don't need tens of thousands of dollars to bring hundreds of people together. I don't need to bring celebrities into the room in order to change somebody's life. I don't need to feign advocacy for love and inclusion and all these things, representation. A lot of that is made up nonsense. It is indoctrination and it is a ploy because the people who are running these operations do not actually maintain the merit that is required to see it through to the end. That's a story for a different day. Plenty of people are covering it. It's not necessary for me to cover it on my show. I am really grateful for the people who commit to doing what is right, who commit to doing the hard right and not the easy wrong, who commit to honesty, even when it is hard, because sometimes it's really hard. I didn't want to lose this relationship. I didn't want to lose my future, my family. I didn't want to lose something I didn't have. I didn't, if I had faced the fact that I didn't have it, I probably, early on, if I had faced that fact just from the beginning, if I were smarter, if I had maybe a little more willpower in this area, then I probably would still be working with that organization, to be fair. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. People don't like me for whatever reasons they don't like me. Like I said, though, I'm consistent. I require direct communication. I'm honest. I show up. I do the work. I expect you to do the same. I will hold everyone accountable, no matter what my role is in the organization, because if you're working with me, I'm working with you, and we are only as good as our weakest weakness. I don't know what else to say about that. But as we proceed with new episodes, we'll be on the road. I'll be sharing more about what like life is like on the road, I guess. Maybe I will do like, since I'm touching grass all the time, maybe I'll actually like talk about where I am or post something on Twitter or um what is the other social media that I'm on? I have a TikTok. I have a Snapchat. Maybe I'll post something there, right? Um Actually, speaking of Twitter, there's been a lot of hubbub about this new album that Tyga put out under the moniker Starface, and then he released the album with the same name, Starface. And it's not really about the story or anything of that nature. It's literally just centered on the topic of AI being used. Plane. Get out of here, plane. Anyway, um, the topic of AI being used has been the main topic of discourse regarding this album. And I saw the Pitchfork review that Drew Millard, is that his name? Drew Millard, yes, wrote. And the way that it was presented, I'm just going to read this real quick and we're almost done. Oh no. Oh, there it is. Oh no. Okay. So basically, they were like, the world is a worse place because this exists. And I didn't agree with that take. So what did I say in response to it? I said that, this is distasteful and I disagree. I think that, artists are held to a standard, a certain standard. Critics should be held to the same standard if they're going to be critiquing the work that these artists are producing. And while I do think that the way that Pitchfork article was put forth was just crazy, obviously there are so many different notes that are left within an actual critique. So I would encourage people to read it. But there are a lot of comments that came on the back end of me sharing my opinion, which is free. It's free. People were really upset about my opinion, but one person said, it's Burnetics, the dish straight said, drop your pitchfork critique. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, Super Tuesday, if you will, I will be dropping my pitchfork, quote unquote, critique of Starface. Before that time comes, I want to encourage you to listen to the music of Prince and listen to the music of Tom Petty. If you have not, do so promptly before you listen to my Pitchfork review tomorrow. That's pretty much it. I don't have anything else to say. I am super, 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 super stoked. I'm super stoked. Oh, that's right. I'm a music artist. Duh. Like, that's why I have a worthwhile opinion on an American rapper putting together an album that is being lambasted as AI pop slop. Okay. So I am very thrilled. Also, because I am a whiz with AI, content generation, prompt engineering, all that. I will say, I will never make an AI song or anything of that sort. It is just, I have a lot of feelings about that. Tune in tomorrow to hear more on that. Love you all. Peace.